I always have to make sure that the red button is on because there was a very, very sad day.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's happened to you before.
Oh, fuck. And then I threw a temper tantrum and we recorded that bit. And then I lost the SD card of the temper tantrum.
Did you publish just that?
I was totally going to publish that. I was going to include it when we re-recorded. I was going to include it in that episode and be like, the first time we recorded, this happened. but unfortunately, I lost it.
Sex positive culture.
It's my body to give.
Are threesome gifts a thing?
Taking a bath.
I like your bed.
Horizontal.
This is Horizontal with Lila.
Horizontal is slow radio. It's intimate. It's like consensual eavesdropping. It's about relationships of all kinds, sharing secrets for your ears. Season 3 mostly consists of threesomes, and in this episode I lie down with the founder, as well as the New York City host, of Skirt Club, a private women's club for the curious kind. Skirt Club is also the name of their sex party, an event designed exclusively for women to explore their bicuriosity. Many of these women are primarily in romantic and sexual relationships with men, just as I was when I attended the Rocker Chic-themed edition of Skirt Club a couple of months ago in a mansion-like loft in New York's financial district. If your bunny ears perked up immediately, darling, you can apply to be a member at skirtclub.co.uk. Genevieve LeJeune created the Skirt Club enterprise. They currently have parties all over Europe and the US to give women a space to explore their sexuality without men present. She felt her bisexuality was being exploited for her boyfriend's amusement and wanted a space away from the male gaze, curated specifically for female empowerment, freedom, and sensual exploration. She couldn't find it anywhere, so she built it. She is a fiercely independent businesswoman and adventurer, a world traveler, a stigma-challenging, femme-presenting entrepreneur of the unconventional. And she is also very, very beautiful. Shelby Nicole is Genevieve's friend. Genevieve said that she doesn't work with anyone she wouldn't want to be friends with, so she's living the maxim, do what you love, with people you like. Shelby is also Skirt Club's New York City event manager and hostess. She greeted me with lingerie and a smile when I arrived in my sequins and leather. Shelby is a creative of many kinds, an actor, a filmmaker, a writer, a model. She can be found in her sex kitten form, resplendent in lingerie on her Instagram, Recluse Muse. But you'll have to request to follow her because she is private. Shelby is a challenging person, as in she challenges every idea. You may find this conversation to be less vulnerable than my usual episodes, perhaps because I had just come from a funeral, but maybe also because I felt, in a way, a bit on guard. This was interesting. I usually curate conditions for myself to record under which I don't feel defensive in any way. I don't usually get horizontal with people I feel the need to verbally parry with. It makes it harder for me to share with you my special self, my soft underbelly. I still did my best here, and I was honest about feeling challenged, which is ultimately the most powerful thing I ask of myself. So in this episode, you'll see what happens when I feel the need to justify and defend my words. I get louder, I talk over them, and I do not cry. Generally these days, I try to live by Brené Brown's mantra, don't shrink, don't puff up, just stand your sacred ground. But I puffed up here. Still, in this episode we talk about Max's death and the funeral, magical thinking, how Genevieve was taught nothing about sex growing up, and Shelby learned through books left on her bed. We talked about Shelby's matter-of-factness and my reaction to it. We talk about British humor, awkwardness, and media, the internet as a safe haven, Shelby's first period, how none of us want children and how refreshing that is for me. The story of how Genevieve married a man when she never wanted to marry anyone. Having very little sex personally in a life that's full of it. Marital bed death and resensitization. The 4 p.m. masturbation break. a brief history of Shelby's search for orgasm, my deep, envious crushes on girls, the kind of women we're attracted to, distinguishing bisexual and pansexual, recognizing if we are bisexual and biromantic, and how Genevieve's ex was repulsed by her interest in women. In next week's episode, which is available exclusively to patrons of the Horizontal Arts, we discuss first sexual experiences with women, my desire to voyeur at their skirt club party, and, to complete the trifecta of taboo topics, we also talk about money. To listen to that episode and for access to the full Horizontal, which includes all the part twos of every conversation, go to patreon.com/horizontal with Lila. That's spelled patreon.com/horizontal with Lila. And now, come lie down with us in the financial district of New York, New York. And I just came from a memorial service. One of my housemates, Morel, she's actually my first podcast guest, lost one of her partners last week. He was 24 and had apparently not used in a while and was doing heroin or another similar narcotic alone and overdosed, and was found by Morel's husband. And so today a bunch of members of my community and I went out to Coney Island, where there's a large Russian community. He came from Russia and emigrated. He was training to be an Olympian ice dancer. And when he injured himself and that career ended, he decided that he wanted to move to America. And he came here and became deeply involved in our community and was one of the most self-expressed. Wow. Thunder and rain. Wow. One of the most self-expressed humans I have ever met. When I first met him, he was wearing a French maid outfit, and he's very tall. He was very tall, over 6 feet, and he was wearing probably 6-inch heels, and he was tottering around on them, trying to get up and down the stairs and serving Morel. And he was just absolutely a delight and a lovely, lovely being. And was a motorcycle rider and a risk taker. And his partner, who, not Morel, but his primary partner, who he was planning to marry this summer, said that maybe and I think we all look for these magical thinking ways to make sense of life, death, and the universe, all the things that we don't really understand. And she said that she thought maybe he sacrificed himself so that we could all level up. And I do feel called up. The day that he died and I found out, I called my mom, and I sometimes avoid talking to my mother and often just don't pay a lot of attention when I'm talking to her. I usually look at other things, and this time I was really present, maybe more present than I'd ever been in a conversation with her, or at least in a very long time. And I looked at her. My parents are 77. They had me when they were 41. So I don't know. I don't know how long they have, and we never know. But the reverberation of a 24-year-old in our community passing suddenly reminded me to pay attention and to tell people in my life that I love them. And so I went up for Father's Day and drove up 3 hours to see my dad and have Chinese food and a movie, as is our tradition, as is our want. And I was running late, and he said, it's a lot of driving for one day. You really, you don't need to come up. And I was like, nope, I'm coming, because I don't know if I will get another Father's Day And we never know. And so I feel grateful for that awareness. My housemate, Valo, asked me this morning if it was a suit kind of thing. And I said, I think so, but I actually only know how the Italians do it because I'm half Brazilian and half Italian, but I've never been to a Brazilian funeral. And I've been to my grandmother's Italian-American, and it's open casket. And then we went to the gravesite and had the funeral there, and then we eat. And that's how we do it in the Italian-American community. And it turns out that Russian, they do it pretty much the same way. So that's what it was. It was an open casket. And none of my housemates besides myself, I think, had ever been to one. They're just not experienced with that.
Had never been to an open casket.
Never been to an open casket. One is Jewish. I'm not sure. Another one is from France. I don't know if that is culturally specific that he hadn't been to one, but he hadn't. And another one had just not been to it. How do they do it in your families?
I went to an open casket funeral when I was 12. My grandmother passed away. I don't know if that's... I couldn't tell you what is exactly customary because I didn't grow up religious, and my family's been in America for many, many generations. So there's not... I don't identify with any like particular tradition, but that was how that one was done. And then my other grandma on the other side was not an open casket, so I think they were just like, I don't know, how do we feel today? Want to see it?
What do we want to do?
Yeah.
On the one hand, I really understand because seeing someone, there is a feeling of, oh, okay, this is real. And for instance, I never got to see my aunt, so it's sort of like, I don't know.
She's probably like off in Aruba.
She's probably just she's on a cruise because like
definitely.
she
was
loved
like,
cruises.
I'm done here.
She's like,
I'm just gonna fake my death and go live a life of luxury.
Well, the thing is, she had these love affairs with like sea captains, but she was a rich Brazilian woman who was divorced and had a sort of a high standing, and I don't think she could do that. So she went away to have her
good when they
dalliances, on the sea. And I got to see a picture in her apartment of her like posing with one of these sea captains. And I was like, that is amazing. She looks so happy. I never saw her look so happy. In your family, how do you do it?
Well, I've only ever been to 2 funerals, and both were cremated inside a coffin. So I never saw them again. I think that's possibly healthy, especially for a child. With both my grandpas.
Right.
I don't know.
Because I don't know.
I felt good I didn't feel good seeing my grandma, but like my grandfather was there, and I was just kind of standing and looking at her, and he was like, "It's okay, you can touch her."
Really?
Yeah, he like touched her hand. It was very cold.
Yeah.
But I think that in Western society, we don't talk about death much. We're really bad at it. And then it comes and we all act really shocked. And you're like, this was fucking coming. Everyone dies. Right. And I actually think it's really beneficial to open that conversation earlier. There are a lot of other cultures where like death is just a part of the circle of life, and they're less scared to talk about it. I think in America and in like Britain for sure too, it's just like we just don't talk about it at all.
Yeah. My grandma died around 15 years ago, I think. And when I saw her in the casket, I thought, oh, that's not her anymore. And then I had this really visceral sense of, oh, the thing that animates is no longer there. So there is a division between this, like what is the body and the vehicle, and then the other stuff, the stuff that makes the person go. And that stuff is no longer there now. I think it allowed me to... So the word that comes is accept, but I don't think that that's the word that I want. Maybe it was just recognize that it was true. And whatever made my grandmother a person was not there. Now there was just a body. Also, when whatever chemicals they have to put inside the person to preserve them enough for you to be able to look at them
Yeah,
and
smelly.
not smell them. or not smell the other things that you would smell if they didn't have that, make them look very like wax.
Very hard.
And it's very, I understand what you mean about like maybe that's healthier for a child not to see because it could be scary. But I agree that we don't talk about it, you know, and I think even less than we talk about sex. We talk,
Definitely.
you know, it's just
Definitely
like,
less.
I mean, I don't know very many people who want to die. So it makes sense that we're avoiding this topic. But I feel grateful for the reminder because I try to practice death awareness. But I think actually most of the time I act like I and the people I know are immortal. Like really in practice, you know, like not telling my people that I love them when we part. Not feeling like that's necessary, you know, because I assume that we have another time to see each other. But that is not promised, that is not guaranteed, and we don't know. And so I would love to, I'd love to carry that. I'd love to carry that in such a way that has me loving the people around me more.
It's a good reminder to have. Doesn't feel great, but it's a good reminder to have.
Yeah, I feel a lot of gratitude. I feel a lot of gratitude for the reminder, and I haven't known a lot of people who have died young. Have you?
Some.
I don't know anyone who's died young.
Did they? I think there's a sense that a lot of them are considered angelic, but I imagine that if you are, did you say you're an atheist?
I'm not religious. I don't know. I'm not religious. I'm not.
Thinking of people in that way might not be the way that you do.
Yeah, that's certainly not a term I would ever think to use. Unless I was talking about like a baby who was crawling toward me. I'd be like, oh, you little angel. That's it. It's the only situation. It's not a word in my vocab.
It's a funny word. Our mythologies are very interesting to me. The way that we tell ourselves stories, the magical thinking that we use in order to make life more palatable.
Yeah, we do a lot of things. We do a lot of euphemisms. We do a lot of, well, they're in a better place, this, blah, blah, blah.
They're looking down on us.
Yeah, I don't ascribe to any of that. I think when we die, we die. I think people grieve in lots of different ways, but ultimately I think that grief is for the living. You're not like doing anything for that person who's died. So I'm not a particularly commemorative person in that way either.
Grief is definitely for the living, but commemorations are too.
Yeah.
Most people need ritual, some kind, in order to make sense. You know, not just give up. Not just be like, well, fuck. Yeah, we're all fucked. Like, not go into total nihilism. So I usually begin by asking, what did you learn about sex growing up?
I feel absolutely nothing. I learned all as an adult to make up for the lack of information as a child.
Nothing. Nobody ever mentioned it.
Nope.
The people who have told me that they learned zero about sex growing up have said that they had a sort of sense that it was just a bad thing. But they were never told, and they don't know how they know that.
A sense of shame, perhaps. A sense of adults only, and it's dirty, so you shouldn't know about it.
Yeah, I did not have that. It's very different.
We have different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different backgrounds.
And what did you learn about sex growing up?
I learned a lot. We had pretty good sex ed. I grew up in Southern California. We had pretty good sex ed in our school. My mother is a physical therapist and a nutritionalist. And I grew up with 3 younger brothers. So I didn't grow up with any body shame. I think my mom was like, diets are stupid. Those aren't things.
Oh, that's great.
Focus was very much on health. My mom used to leave books on my bed with like information in them. And the implication was always, you know, if you want to come to me and talk about it, you can. Mm-hmm. But I'd never had like an actual sex talk with my parents.
Is that because you just didn't feel the need to? You felt well-informed enough?
I felt well-informed. I felt like comfortable if I needed to go to them, I could. But I was the oldest of 4 children. I am not a person who asks for help particularly frequently. I waited to have sex until I was 19 because I was like, it's not supposed to hurt. I know it's not supposed to. Mm-hmm. My first time was great.
I also waited until I was 19.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of that, and I didn't grow up in a religious house, so the like shame.
You weren't
is
indoctrinated.
typically associated with that. I just didn't really have. And I like learned how to masturbate when I was 7 on accident and didn't know that's what it was. So I've been doing that for a long time. So it's like,
what was your method?
Jacuzzi. Me and my like best
yeah.
friend in elementary school.
I did the public school pool.
The strats are good.
The public the recreation center pool. The public pool.
And I'm like, well, when you don't know what you're doing, right? Like we had no shame about it. We were like, this feels good. We like tried to teach one of my brothers, and we were like, oh, this doesn't work for you. That's not the same way.
And you do it until it feels really, really good, and then it stops feeling good, and you're like, okay, well, I'm done now.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, so you said pretty good sex ed. What does pretty good sex ed mean to you?
I mean, certainly there was no inclusion of anything other than like heterosexual sex. No discussion of trans people. No, it wasn't like It wasn't like pro sex. We didn't talk about like masturbation, but I like knew about birth control. I knew about condoms. I knew about diseases. I had pretty good picture of anatomy. Like I knew what stuff did. I do think that in like 4th grade, I feel like they like separate the boys and girls, and they're like, you go learn about periods, and you go learn about wet dreams. I don't know what the fuck they learn about.
Who knows?
Nothing, because they don't know how any of our parts work. But other than that, it's not perfect. None of it is. Sex ed in this country is shit.
Any mention of pleasure?
I don't remember. Probably of like the man ejaculating, but I don't know if they were like, this feels good. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't remember having any mention of people do this because it feels good.
Right.
Shelby, how did you come to be so matter of fact?
Oh, I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that question. I'm a Taurus? I don't know. I think I've kind of always been like this.
The oldest. Oh, the landscape of your household.
Yeah.
So did you grow up in a dual parent household?
I did. My parents got divorced when I was like 21, but after I was gone.
So you had, through your upbringing, while you were in the house, you had parents who were together.
Yeah, not always nicely.
Yeah, I was about to say, did they seem happily together?
Oh, no, I was very involved in their like fighting over the course. I had to be an adult a lot growing up. So I did a lot of caretaking.
Which can imbue an authoritative tone in a person, for sure.
It does that.
And you have 3 younger siblings. Can you give me the landscape of the ages?
Mm-hmm. So I'm 27. The one below me is 25, and then 23, and the youngest will be 21 in August.
Ooh. So you're pretty close.
There were a lot of teenage boys in my house for a minute.
Wow.
It was a lot, yeah.
And they're all boys?
All boys.
Oh, that maybe is another thing too. So if you're being authoritative over 3 boys, that might be another reason why you're like, because there's a sense that I do a lot of mirroring of people, right? And there's a sense that with you, I want to like sort of like lock and load to be like ready to parry with you. But that's not really how I want to talk to you. So I just wanted to presence that was there.
I mean, you can. Let's do it. I'm down.
G.I. Jane's in the house.
It's not really how I like to get horizontal, but
it can be very fun sometimes.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, for sure. A little consensual wrestling. In the landscape of your household, Genevieve?
I'm the oldest also, and I have a younger sister and a younger brother. My sister's more or less my age. My brother's much younger. He's the baby. He just turned 30.
And got married recently.
And got married in India. Yeah. So I was in Goa for their 5-day wedding very recently, which is the longest wedding I've ever been to, with more than 7 costume changes.
Wow. And full ceremonial garb and mendi and all this?
Everything you can possibly imagine, minus the elephant.
The dancing?
Yes.
The pictures were so pretty.
Wow.
There was a dance-off, which I like to think that I won.
But does that mean you didn't really?
Well, my brother's better than me because I trained him. So naturally he has to.
Surpass the master.
Right.
You come from a dance background?
Not at all. Just got music in my blood.
It's just natural.
And your parents?
Well, they're in Blighty, living in a beautiful country cottage in England somewhere, surrounded by sheep. But they're both British.
Did you grow up in the country?
No, I grew up in Hong Kong.
Oh.
So they moved there when I was 2, and that's where I went to school.
Is this a military situation?
No, it's an engineering situation. My dad built bridges, skyscrapers, and an airport.
Wow. Did you do much moving, or was it really Hong Kong for a long time? And
It
then
was just Hong Kong for a long time. But then after I came back to the UK, I started working in London, and I couldn't sit still. So since then I lived in San Francisco and Dubai with lots of travel, a little bit in Paris, Venice, and Barcelona. So yeah, I like to move around.
When did you live in Paris?
I was kind of straight out of school, so my first job, 22.
Do you speak French?
Oui. Je suis française.
Ooh.
No, I'm actually not French. I'm British. I just have a French name. But I do speak French, yes.
I mean, that's helpful, I think.
I think at school, everyone in the UK learns French first. And I also took on Spanish and Italian, since once you learned one, you might as well learn the others, really.
So the stereotype that we have about Brits is that they can't talk about anything difficult. They're, if they're going to talk about anything difficult, they're going to take the piss out of it. They're going to laugh at it. And so I think we expect Brits not to have any sex ed. But you grew up in Hong Kong.
Which is the British system. So it's the same stuff,
Okay.
just in a different country.
Do you find that that's this very similar? There's this like inability to speak about, I suppose, death, sex, and money.
Definitely. I think your description is accurate. Brits, they find everything awkward, generally. So maybe our banter and humor comes from finding a way to talk about subjects without actually talking about them. We've mastered that technique.
I think I really appreciate British sense of humor, like a lot of British media, because they do joke about things that are really dark. And I'm like, listen, whatever your avenue in, that's
Right.
cool. And this is funny. So.
And we like to laugh.
Yeah, it's quite a different sense of humor. But that is the way we almost talk to one another.
So good. That is the way we almost talk to one another. There's something about using it to cut in, right? Because if you laugh, it's like your belly goes up and you like expose your little tender underbelly, and then it's easier to say the things you have to say. Which is why comic relief is used in films, and you'll have a film with a super dramatic moment, and then they cut it with a little joke. Just give you a chance to open your mouth and, have that relief.
The British do that a little bit less than us. They'll make you sit in it for that like minute of awkwardness, which I really appreciate. They're like, no, you don't get this like. I think like the two Office versions are good examples. Like the
yes.
British Office is so bleak, where like in the American one, we've given it all this like fun humor stuff, because you're like, at some point, this is just a really sad show about a bunch of people who like can't get out of this garbage town. And in America, we're like, oh, we can't. No, that's too much. Sorry, too sad.
Do you think if everything is so awkward for Brits, there's actually a great tolerance for awkwardness?
I think
Like
we
a higher
revel in
tolerance?
it. We just revel in the awkwardness of everything.
Do you know the sex educator Reid Mahalko?
No.
He's a big, known across the country sex educator, and his thing is Read About Sex, REID, Read About Sex. And he runs Sex Geek Summer Camp, and he has a lot of resources on his website for folks. And he has a sticker, and it says "Embrace the awkward," and one of the letters is like
That's cute.
And I think that he has that because in order to have any kind of real connection, there's going to be awkwardness. And my theory, did you see the article in The Atlantic about why kids are having less sex these days?
I didn't read it, but I did see it.
I read the whole thing.
Okay, what summarize
And
it?
why?
And I can not summarize it for you, but I can tell you my conclusion.
Okay.
And my conclusion after reading all of that and after watching millennials in the wild, you know, at the coffee shop I go to and the tea shop I go to, is that their tolerance for awkward situations is so low. They are actually extremely risk averse. And so they don't want to meet somebody in real life because, oh, that's so awkward, or like, ooh, like unless something is relatively guaranteed, like we matched. We've already sent each other messages. So we know that we're interested in going out on a date. The tolerance for ambiguity and like, what is this? Oh, I don't know. Is this a date? I'm not sure. I'm drawn to this person, but I don't know why. Like there's no tolerance for that. And without that, there's very little exploration to be had. You have to decide, okay, we're going out on a date. That's what we're doing. And then if it's not right, then theoretically, you have to end it, except they don't want to end anything either because that's awkward. So they just ghost. Mm-hmm. So that's my theory about why young people are having less sex these days, because the tolerance for risk and any kind of awkwardness is just incredibly low. And that comes from interfacing with a machine before people, not looking people in the eyes. I even read something about reclaiming conversation, I think. And it was that kids are not developing empathy by 8, which is considered the proper age, because they're actually not looking other humans in the eye.
Ooh, we're gonna so many fun, weird sociopaths.
It's so scary.
The future is bleak.
I really am afraid for this generation right below me. The next one, I actually have hope for them. Because I feel like their parents are the ones who are like, you can't have a smartphone, or I'm taking your smartphone at night. Or, you know, they're not like, they're like, read a book. You know, I think they're scared.
Oh, I don't know. I think that the kids that are right below us are great. I think they're like really politically minded and much more informed than many people were when I was that age. What'll change with the next one is that their parents just know how to use technology. Like right now, right? Like our parents didn't know how to use it. And the generation below us is still kind of at that crux. But at some point, we'll just have parents who are also informed and like are less scared of it all the time, I think.
Generation below us they're digital natives. So a lot of them, you know, in their strollers were shoved a phone is shoved into their hands to stop them from crying, rather than a thing that will engage their imagination, so they have to make up stories and such. That's what I'm concerned about. It's like this lack of imagination and this lower risk tolerance.
Is that something that like you've observed, like being around a lot of parents, or like working in schools, or like where is that coming from?
Seeing people on the subway,
okay,
and on the street shove phones in the hands of their children to keep them quiet, keep them busy.
Yeah, bad. Who needs robots when we've got children?
Oh, God. I just watched AI for the first time.
Oh.
I like the internet. I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, I grew up in an era where there was no internet.
Yeah.
I never had a mobile phone until I was, 18, 19. Mm-hmm. And I had one of the first. So that's...
Yeah, me too.
Right. So I know a world without internet. And that's rare these days.
I know.
Especially when doing business.
I think the thing that you're pointing to is an incredible tool. And like any tool, like a hammer could be used to smash somebody's head in or to build something beautiful. It's in the way that you use it. It will take a while for us to build towards a really conscientious way of using it.
Sure. I think it is also used in very conscientious ways too, though. I think that like the internet...
By whom?
I think the internet provides a safe haven for a lot of adolescents who don't feel like they have an acceptable community in their real life.
Yeah, I love that.
I know tons of people who like made internet friends and like suddenly felt like they had someone around the world who was an anchor for them, who provided them with some semblance of similarity.
Did you have anything like that?
I certainly like had internet friends. I was fine in school. I didn't have anything that was like particularly alienating. But I do have a lot of friends who are queer, who are trans, who didn't have that at home. And I think that we tend to discount internet relationships as not real. And I actually think that the internet can be a really phenomenal tool of connection if it is used that way.
Yeah, I definitely don't discount that, particularly for people in, let's say, not in cities, who are in need of community, and people who have the preferences that they have or look more like them, and are able to then reach out globally, nationally and globally. I think that's quite
certainly
incredible.
That also how people fall into like bad communities, but
tools, as we say. So Genevieve learns zero about sex. And then when do you start getting curious and educating yourself?
I was 14. Well, nobody was going to tell me, so I figured I'd seek it out on my own.
Did you try asking your parents?
I didn't know about it, so you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
It hadn't even entered my mind until I read a book.
What book?
It's called Forever by Judy Blume.
Yes.
Finally, someone
love
else
it.
that knows it. And that's how I found out about sex.
That's delightful. And so then your curiosity was piqued.
Well, first I was angry because how did my parents not tell me about this? And I was probably 14, right? So how did I get to that age and not know what intercourse
Did you know
Nobody
about
at
your period?
school?
Nope. Not in class, for sure.
You didn't know about your period?
Yes, I knew. Yes, I had my period by that point.
Okay.
I know people who got their period and thought that they were dying because they didn't know anything about periods, and it was like a terrifying experience for them.
Well, I knew what it was,
Yeah.
but I hadn't understood the part about the penis and the vagina. I knew it was there for baby making, but I didn't know about how to make a baby.
Right.
And you don't think to ask because you just trust your parents implicitly to tell you everything there is to know about life.
You did.
I did.
I met one woman at Connection Camp, and when she had her period, her mother threw her a party and invited. No, listen. She invited. No. No.
What was the color theme?
She invited intergenerational women and women in the family. And they came together and they celebrated it so that it wasn't something that she would feel ashamed of. So it was like, you're a woman now, welcome. And then like she got all this guidance from
nice.
women. And I thought it was absolutely inspiring and gorgeous and wish we had more rites of passage like that.
I got my period when I was 12, and
Same.
I was supposed to leave to go perform in a play. And I was like, okay, Dad, hold on 1 second. I just have to go to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom. I got it. And I was like, oh, shit. I like yelled at my dad. I was like, Dad, can you go get me one of Mom's pads? He ran and like got me a pad. And I was like, cool, gotta go. And we just like left. And it was like not a thing
No big
at
deal.
all. Yeah.
Classic.
Is that kind of how things are for you generally? Like,
Thanks not being a big deal.
yeah, because the sense I'm getting from everything that I've said so far, and your response has been, oh yeah, that's not a big deal, whatever, I didn't have that, I didn't have any shame about that, yeah, whatever, I mean, it's fine. Like, I'm not worried about that generation.
I think it's just a different way. Yeah, I do think I approach things like I'm just fairly relaxed about. And I was really lucky. I was really lucky to know what was coming my way. So it wasn't scary.
Do you want to be a mom?
No.
Interesting. I can really see you very
I love kids.
militaristically raising
I spend
your
a lot of time with kids, but I don't want my own.
I don't want kids either.
Neither do I.
No?
No, never did.
Me neither. I'm very refreshed whenever I hear women in my cohort saying that, you know, because there's so much, are you sure? You just haven't met the right man yet. It'll probably change, you know, oh, your biological clock isn't ticking yet. I'm like, I'm 36. And I have never looked at a child, not once, and thought, oh, I wish that child were mine. Never, ever. And I know the people who are in my life who really want children, they started thinking that when they were children.
Right.
Like they really, really want that. Have you had to defend that choice at all?
To my mother, yes, but nobody else. I think people know not to argue with me generally
Why is that?
because I've always just done what I wanted to do. I'm not too, maybe I have had to defend myself, but I just don't recall because it hasn't been important. I've generally ignored people who try to tell me what I am when only I know best about that.
What are the things that you've done that are the things that you mean when you're like, I've always done what I wanted to do?
I've probably not taken advice, which I could have done with sometimes. But I guess I like to learn the hard way, which is by doing it myself, even if it takes me 10 times longer. So I just always had to. There's never really been someone to go to for help. So
Your parents were not those people.
no, but neither were their parents. So that's just the way they were raised. But I also think it's quite healthy to have to think on your own 2 feet.
Was it more like a figure it out kind of?
Figure it out, or I just don't know, or don't come to me. I'm too busy. You know, dad's at work, mom's cooking the dinner, don't interrupt.
What did you learn about relationships by witnessing them?
They were classically British, I suppose, but very, very traditional. Mom was mom and dad was dad at work. And you only spoke to him when he got home after he'd had his dinner and his whiskey and a cigar. And he was allowed to watch the news, and we were not allowed to choose anything on television ever.
Ooh. And what did you process about that? Were you like, that looks good?
Well, first of all, never wanted to get married. That was my first takeaway. And second, I never wanted anyone to tell me what to do.
Yeah. But you're married now?
I am. And he does not tell me what to do.
I'll bet. Was that a deciding factor in marrying him?
We got married very quickly, having been friends for 15 years. So it was more that he'd moved to America, and this was pretty much the only way that we were going to stay together. So that was the decision.
Can you tell me the story of your love affair with him from the beginning?
Well, it was not a love affair at the beginning. He was my colleague at work. So
What line of work?
finance.
Okay.
And we were both in marketing. So we sat together on the same team. As my colleague, in my mind, there was no room for messing about in the workplace.
So there's nothing in the broom closet happening for you?
Not at all. He was a very attractive man, but I also had a boyfriend at home, and I just knew not to mess with colleagues. That was just not what you did.
Which city was this in?
London.
So this was in London, and when you said you had a boyfriend at home, he was in London as well?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, you just meant not in the office.
Correct.
Literally just at home.
In the apartment that we lived together in London.
In my home in London. Okay, yes, in your home in London. Okay. So you had a very, let's say, not permeable work boundary. You were good in that sense.
Well, yeah, but I was also, only 25.
What do you mean? I feel like younger people mess around in the office more, no?
No.
No?
Not in my era. I feel like that was just like a no-go area. Like you were sabotaging your career if you did that.
Yeah.
So that did not happen. And then he left the company, so it did happen very shortly afterwards.
You just waited.
Very mitigated.
He left, but you were in touch.
Yes, we remained friends. And I moved away, actually. I moved to San Francisco. I don't know, I kept in touch with him for some reason. I had other boyfriends, but I guess I just kept coming back to him.
I think a lot of people are concerned if they have a little burning romantic flame for a friend that they will lose the friendship if they even speak it.
Ooh, so true.
So how did you navigate coming into that first, we're going to get together, but now it's going to be something different. Now it's going to be a date.
So in a very typical British way, we got drunk, had sex, then pretended it didn't happen. And then we could just pretend that we were still friends and there was nothing else.
Perfect.
It's fine. We didn't do anything.
It's perfect.
Until the next time we got drunk, of course, and then it happened again.
What were you drinking?
For me, it would always be a gin and tonic.
And for him?
No idea. Beer.
Like something
Pint of
equally
lager.
effective.
How many drinks did it take for you to be like, all right, let's do this?
5.
Definitively. 5. That's
I'm always
amazing.
a 5 drinks kind of girl.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Were you 5 drinks in at Skirt Club when I saw you at the end of the night?
I have no idea. I can't measure it at events.
There's no way to
because-
count the champagne glasses.
Yeah.
They just keep coming.
And someone keeps pouring, topping up my glass as well. So I've got absolutely no measure of that.
So you get drunk You have sex, you pretend it doesn't happen. You British again, you get drunk, you have sex, you pretend it doesn't
make it a
happen.
verb.
Yes.
You British.
Yeah, you British again. And then what?
And then you find the perfect excuse to get married, like he's moved abroad, so now we have to.
I'm never going to talk to
Wait
you
a
ever
minute.
again unless you're my husband.
Wait a minute. We're talking 2 nights and marriage? No, come on. What's the in between?
Actually, you know what? It's probably more like 6 nights of marriage.
Wow.
Yeah, we
But
jumped
15
pretty
years
quick.
of friendship.
Yes, of
So
course
like
you have
knowing each other really well.
Right, but the intercourse happened maybe only 6 times before the actual nuptials.
like,
And
Oh,
were you
that's crazy.
were you solid that you were like, this is good enough sex to marry?
It was the best I'd ever had,
Oh my God.
hands down.
I have such envy.
Yeah, there was no doubt in my mind ever.
The best you've ever had. Do you think that a long-term partnership, I don't want to use shoulds because I feel like that's so easy to poke holes in, but I'm gonna say should be with the best sex you've ever had. There is a love coach named Annie Lala, and she says that often when the sex is really, really, really hot, you're fucking each other's wounds. And I was like, oh shit.
I don't know about that.
I looked back over my history. I was like, oh. And it seemed quite true. What do you think about that, Genevieve?
Not in my situation. Definitely not fucking any wounds.
Like we put bandages over those.
No,
like
come on.
adults.
Well, I don't know. It was just very. He's got a good EQ, you know. He reads
Yeah.
people very well, and he's great with his hands. And of course, all of this was shown in song and dance to me before we married, and now taken away since this is the sad part of the story. Now
What?
that we're married, we don't have sex anymore. And I guess because of what I do for a living, you know, I see so much of people having sex.
Right.
I don't feel like I'm missing out here because my life is full of sex. But
Witnessing it, though.
witnessing it, a lot of it, which it's hard to explain, but I should crave it.
You feel
from
like you
him,
should.
But I think I'm saturated because I see it so often. Nothing really turns me on anymore. Oh dear, that's bad.
Fuck.
I totally get that though. That just is. I bet that if you take a vacation and like just don't be around it for a little while, it'll like come back, right? Like libido comes and goes
Possibly.
in waves. I don't think you're not like broken. You're not gonna never want to fuck again.
The
But
lack of sex, you're saying, is because you're not feeling it.
No, it's both of us are just
both of
busy.
you.
Yeah, no, it's. Oh, I should be careful here because it's not a lack of sex. We still have sex once a week, but it's. I guess when we like every couple when you meet is every 5 minutes, you know, and there's a difference. And given that we'd never lived together before we got married,
Right.
you'd expect there, to be rabbit season for at least 2 years.
I also do imagine something similar, Shelby, because, for instance, there are a lot of men who grew up with porn as their only sex education and as their main stimulant. And their masturbation style gets harder and grippier, and soon if they engage with a woman, they can't come because it's not the kind of grip that they're used to. So there's this like masturbation death grip. But they can resensitize.
yeah,
It might take time,
right. But bodies can be reset.
but there are ways, right? And so
I
I
used
was
to
thinking
only
about
come
that.
with a jacuzzi jet, and that's not true anymore. But like, there's definitely a minute where I was like, "Whoa, nothing else is gonna work." It's a very intense way to start.
And there was the same thing with one of the women at Skirt Club asked, what about those of us who are, let's say, mechanically dependent at this moment, right? And your educator then was Holly, right? Dr. Holly Richmond. And Holly said, it's going to be frustrating for about a couple months, and you need to change it up, and you need to use your hands sometimes. You need to maybe go back to the early way that you used to masturbate. So maybe it's the pool. A lot of people, it's frottage, a lot of rubbing against something, and change it up so that you train your body. Oh, this can be pleasure too.
Right.
This can be
Like other
pleasure
things.
too. It's not only zzz, So I wonder if it takes moving away from your work for longer than a short vacation would provide.
Right, because she's also right. She's not talking about, right, Genevieve, you're not talking about like some physical, like being really used to something and not being able to come, right? You're talking literally about lack of desire because sex is so present in other areas of your life that it is not
quite similar, no?
It's not gone. I don't think so. I think that is more mental and emotional than like physically training your body to only come from a vibrator.
Maybe I suffer from both, actually, because
Maybe,
I've
okay.
recently come across this wonderful quick fix at 4 p.m. where I don't need to have a
Like right on time.
Yeah.
Can we take a break for a couple minutes?
We can.
So I'm a bit of a workaholic, and at 4 p.m. I'm either going to need a second coffee or chocolate to get me through the rest of the day, or I could have an orgasm, and it takes 5 minutes. I've got a selection of toys in the bedroom, and I can have my mind focused, laser sharp again so quickly. I am now doing this easily 4 days out of 5, Monday to Thursday, pretty much at 4 p.m. And I don't know if I've fallen upon like this wonderful new trick, or long-term I'm sabotaging my entire sex life.
I don't know. I masturbate like many days a week.
Your desire for sex on the day that you masturbate is unchanged?
No, not necessarily. Sex is different than masturbation. Like, I think that I still crave, like, intimacy. I also don't come when I have sex most of the time. Like, with other people, I very rarely come.
Because of mechanics, or because you are not masturbating with them, or?
It's a combination of things. I think a lot of it is mental. But also, like, because that wasn't the case for me for so long, I sort of reframed sex as, like, sex is intimacy. And I can feel very satisfied having sex with someone and not coming, because it's so much more than coming. Coming is a tiny part of it, and that's not always my goal. But being close with someone is nice.
I think the reframe is beautiful. Do you also care about it? Like, would you like to?
Oh, yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah. I think by the time I'm in my 30s, I'm going to be coming with everyone.
So I think there's probably a lot of people who would identify with this. What methods or what techniques, when you say you're working on it, what does it mean? Like, how does one work on that?
All right, so I'm going to say some things that are going to sound really matter of fact, but you have to realize that they're coming from being informed for 20 years, right? So I'm not like, I didn't suddenly think this. It's like over the course of time. Started masturbating with the jacuzzi jet, really intense. Didn't have sex until I was 19, right? So like had been doing that for a number of years. Anything people would do, like going down on me, like touching me, I was like, okay, well, that's just like not a thing. I didn't feel like it was a big deal, because while I knew a lot about sex, you still don't get taught that sex should be framed around the pleasure for the woman, right? You're like, when the dude comes, you're done. And I was having sex with men and women, but it was much more frequently with men.
When you said that's not a thing, does that mean when there was a tongue on your pussy, when there was a cock inside your pussy, when there were fingers inside your pussy, you actually couldn't feel it very much?
I could like feel it, but I was like, this doesn't feel good.
Like, this isn't
anything.
like...
Yeah. It was like, this is nice. I like being with someone. Like, sex is still really hot. I wasn't going to come.
And then was it almost the same as if they were just touching another part of you?
Kind of.
Like there was nothing like super special about this area?
Kind of. Yeah, just like feeling someone's hands on me was really nice. And as I got like into my early 20s and started to realize like, oh, that's a thing that like people are doing. Like I could be coming during this, but I couldn't do it with my hand. So like I had to use something to come. And so I sort of started to reframe it in my mind, because I was like, I don't want to feel bad about that. So I reframed it as like, oh, well, coming is like a really intimate thing. And it felt a little bit powerful to be able to like make someone else come and not let them make me come. So I reframed that as like a sort of self-protective device. And then when I was
kinky, like power play, right?
Which, they didn't really know. But,
but you're framing it for yourself, so it's empowering, an empowering story, rather than a disempowering one.
And then when I was 22, I was having sex with someone, and he made me come really unexpectedly. And I was like, whoa, someone can do this with their hand. That's really cool.
When you say unexpectedly?
Oh, he was like fingering me. Well, on the outside. Inside doesn't do shit.
Was it? Can you show me?
I can show you. It's not so good on like a
circular?
podcast. But I don't remember exactly how he's doing it. I was on top of him, like lying on my back on top of him, and he was on his back. And he had his hand around me in front. And I already knew that I wasn't going to have sex with him again because I had started seeing someone and I wanted to see that person more seriously. So we like had sex in the morning, and then I told him, I was like, I think that we should stop seeing each other because I'm like getting kind of serious with this other person. But I was like, oh, this is cool. Someone can do it with their hands. So I was like, great, I'm going to learn how to do that. And so then I actively like started practicing and like managed to do it.
How long do you think that took you?
Actually, I think that was pretty quick. Because it like within the same year.
You imitated what he had done, or you just did some exploration? You kind of did some body mapping for yourself?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Did you ever look while you were doing it?
No, yeah, I was all like, feel. That would probably be helpful. I should do that because then I can tell people how to do it more.
It's really cool. I haven't done it that often, but I read Pussy by Mama Gina, right?
Okay.
And I was like, what? How have I never done that before? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna look at my pussy. And like, I just like got the hand mirror, and I have a loft bed, and it looks out onto Brooklyn basically. And there's a train that goes by, and so the train
just saying hello to the train.
Yeah, train's going around the bend, and I'm like there with my legs open and with my compact mirror, and I was like, wow, I didn't know. Like, look at all those shades of pink. Like, I actually didn't. I hadn't even.
You're
like,
saying you hadn't even like looked at your vagina.
I had barely looked. I had maybe looked once.
Oh, I've looked at my vagina
in my
all the time.
life.
I just haven't watched myself.
But then I started touching myself, and I was amazed to see the color change. And my inner lips start to come out. And I was like, whoa! And I was super turned on. And it was one of only probably a handful of times in my life that I have masturbated without fantasy.
Oh, cool.
Because I was
like
watching
just by being
myself, visually stimulated by me turning myself on. I was like, this is awesome.
That's rad. Good for you. I love that.
So you were figuring it out
by
feel.
Right. And I was seeing someone seriously at the time. And then he managed once to make me come going down on me. And I think for like the next 3 hours, every so often I would just start giggling. And I was like, oh my God, that was really cool.
That happened.
And like then over the course of the last year, I've been actively trying to like reframe coming not as something that I like need to withhold in order to be like, this is mine, but to be like, oh, actually this like feels good and I should like let this happen. And in the past 2 months, I have let 2 new people make me come. So, slow progress.
That's exciting.
Many years, but it's happening.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Did you, I would imagine, if I were in your place and the first person made me come, I would think that it was about them or something about them and me. Were you like, what is it about this person?
No, because I already knew that I wasn't going to see him anymore because I was like falling in love with this other person.
Yeah.
No, I literally was like, cool, a hand can do that. This is a technical thing that is possible.
A hand can do that.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can do that with my hand, and other people can do that with their hands.
Yeah, I was like, he's cool as fuck, but it's like we were just fucking. It wasn't like a thing.
That's really exciting, though, that you could take that information and be like, this means it's possible for me.
Yeah.
And therefore, I can source it in different ways. Yeah. But it means that I'm capable of that.
Hands. I got hands.
The first time I had what I would call an energetic orgasm that wasn't about manual stimulation of my clit. It's only been a few times, but wasn't about internal stimulation of the clit either, but was stillness and breathing and presence. I was like, holy fuck, this is a thing.
Oh,
this can happen. I can't. And because it had the same kind of contractions, I recognized it as an orgasm, but it was not quite the same. And I was like, it's like
feel really connected.
What? And it wasn't him, but it was something that he was skilled in. And what he was skilled in, he was a yoga teacher, he had studied Tantra. What he was skilled in was riding my wave with me, riding my breathing along with me, and kind of encouraging me sort of I visualize it as this like spiraling upward, and he was like in the spiral with me somehow. And then I was like, that's something that I can do. My body could do that. My body's amazing. And then it didn't happen again for a long time. But when I had another lover who was practiced in presence and who had studied Tantra, it did happen again.
Cool.
Yeah. It's really, really exciting. Oh,
No, it's okay.
the Russian food. No, it was totally delicious and lovely. Maybe it's the vodkas. I'm not used to drinking. I only drink tequila.
lunchtime?
Yeah, and then there was just all this vodka, and so everybody else was having shot glasses, and I filled my shot glass 1/6 full, and then I would cheers with them. And that's how I was able to do it because I just can't. Usually, the reason why I don't have other forms of alcohol besides tequila and mezcal are because they make me tired and sad. And I don't need any more of those things in my life, being a person who's often quite fatigued and has a history of depression and a lineage of depression. I don't need that shit.
Where's the happy juice?
Exactly. Give me the happy juice. I walked into a dispensary in Colorado, and the reason why I don't smoke weed is because it makes me feel like I want to sink into things. And I don't want to sink into the couch. I don't want to that's not good for me. I need uppers, you know? And so I walked in, I was like, listen, I take SSRIs. At that time I was taking Zoloft. I don't like it because I don't want to sink into the couch. I don't want to have any after effect. I don't want to feel groggy. And she's like, have I got the thing for you? She's like, this is the cleanest high I've ever experienced, the giggliest, like, sold, give it to me. And we actually have a video of me. I'm wearing a galactic shiny snowsuit in the middle of Boulder, Colorado. My hair is braided, and I've got the end of my braid, and the braid is a little scraggly, and the end of my braid reminded me of a Muppet. I'm hysterically laughing, and I'm going, Meeker, and holding the end of the braid up in front of my face. And my friend Tiana's taking this video, and she goes, Beaker? And I'm like, Beaker? I just kick her around. So upper's very, very good for me. Can't do any downers.
I want to know is where you got a galactic snowsuit.
Oh, I will show you.
I was like, I want one.
Dolls kill.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
I should have guessed that.
I just found them yesterday.
Oh.
And I immediately bought a mug that has a unicorn saying, I'm the best aunt ever. So
Perfect.
yeah.
I want to know about the origins of your bicuriosity and your interactions with women. I always had what I would call deep, envious crushes on girls.
Do I want to be you? Do I want to
fuck you? The women that I have been attracted to, which are a small subset, but so are the men that I'm attracted to, because I just don't have a really broad range of people that I'm attracted to. It's just, I don't know, not my way, or it would be great if it were broader. And it's just not in terms of physical characteristics, but just in terms of the amount of humans. But these were blonde-haired, blue-eyed women, right? And on this dark, most of my life I've been really, really
So funny.
dark-haired and dark-eyed. And I thought that is what beautiful was, right? Nicole and, what was her? Ellie. And, these girls that I was friends with that I envied so much. That's what beauty was. Blonde hair, blue eyes. The ones
So
who look like
American of
angels.
you. Yeah.
The ones who look like quote-unquote Americans. And the ones who look Aryan. And I'm half Jewish lineage, half Jewish blood by way of Brazil, right? So later on, I started to examine that. I'm like, is that a self-hating thing? That I'm attracted to these blonde-haired, blue-eyed men and women. And that's what turns me on. Is this actually kind of a kinky thing?
You're like, I'm going to ruin you.
Like, am I like, do I want to do some Nazi play? Like, is this
funny.
like, is this where I'm at?
Okay.
Well, it is quite strange that would be your type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so not into blondes.
Yeah.
Neither am I, actually.
Really?
That is the opposite of my type.
Yeah.
You like
Definitely brunette.
tall, dark, and
Dark
handsome, swarthy,
I mean, I like a billion things, just not blondes, really.
just not blonde.
Particularly I'm not attracted to blonde women at all. But I know where that comes from, because I grew up in Orange County in California.
Where there's
Where it's all...
And that's all it was. And I was like, this like version of girl that is like the ideal here. And I'm like, I'm not the flavor here. And I wasn't like, I'm ugly. I was like, this is just not the place for me.
Oh, I was like, I'm ugly.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm hideous. Like, can I can I like cut off the bump in my nose and how much would it bleed? And
You have a beautiful nose.
thank you. I eventually decided not to operate on it because my mom got a nose job, and in Brazil, where plastic surgery is a little more plentiful and common, and I begged for one in middle school when I was getting teased. I mean, like kids say awful things, and it's called like a wicked witch, and I played witches, and I was like, well, it must be because I'm
yes,
ugly.
I am. I'm gonna drop houses on you.
I didn't like it until later. And then I was like, I could play the witch, the bitch, the tramp, the vamp. I got it. I got covered, But at that time, I just felt really demoralized by it. And I really did feel ugly. And I looked in the mirror and I saw Toucan Sam. I saw Gonzo. I saw something that was not there. It was body dysmorphia because I did not see what was true.
We destroy women. It like makes me... I just have like these like beautiful friends who will talk about themselves, and I'm like, first of all, I'm not entertaining that, so let's change the topic because we're not going to get into one of those spirals. But I'm just like, this is infuriating. I'm like, you guys are so fucking hot. Like, shut up. But I so get it. But we do that. We just like have this one vision of what is beauty, and I think like being in Orange County where that vision of beauty is the vision of beauty that is like American, I was like, gross. No, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that.
Then did you seek out, what did you think was beautiful? Did you seek out diversity? Did you seek out exotic looks?
No, I actually think that for a minute there, was really attracted to girls who looked like me, but a little bit prettier. Like I viewed pale skin and dark hair. I probably liked girls who were a little bit thinner than me, which is not true at all anymore. No, I think that my realm was to try to find ways to find myself beautiful first.
So some sort of slightly idealized version of you in your wheelhouse, in your ilk.
Right.
Yeah.
It also helped that I grew up acting, and I used to get compared a lot to like Judy Garland. So like these sort of like 1940s, 1950s like film stars that were a little bit different picture of American beauty, but I think was equally valid to this like beach blonde surfer girl.
She was my idol as a kid.
Judy Garland?
Judy Garland and Gene Kelly.
She's a good one. We ruined her. Sad.
I
sad
know.
life. But yeah, I think I was like, okay, Dorothy. I can do Dorothy. Like that's great. Let's like lean into that direction instead. And I also traveled. My like family traveled a lot, so I think I had I was lucky to see other kinds of people. I remember I was 12. The first time I was like, oh, I'm cute. I was 12. I was in a grocery store in Canada. This boy like walked past the aisle and he stopped and looked at me for a second and then like blushed and ran away. And I was like, he was checking me out.
Yes.
And I was like, it's okay that Orange County is not the place. I'm going to like go elsewhere. And there was like a running joke in my friend group that I had like only kissed people out of the country. Like my first kiss was like on a cruise in the Bahamas. My second was like with this like Costa Rican boy who worked at this hotel that we stayed at for a little while. Who was like this beautiful dark skinned boy. And I was like, it's all right. Just California's not my place. I'm going to go somewhere else.
You brought up a memory for me.
Yeah.
I used to go on vacation with my family to the Bahamas, and we went there I think 3 or 4 times. And I went there once, and I would have been 11, maybe 12, because my parents divorced when I was 12, and it was with them together. So it was I think just in that year before they actually divorced, and I was flirting with. It was the only time in my life I ever tried to get a tan. And I succeeded.
Like Italian, Brazilian, fuck yes, I got that.
I'm doing this. I'm the palest version of any of my families, But I got that tan that summer. And there was a scuba diving instructor, blonde-haired, blue-eyed.
Okay.
I don't remember how old he was, but he seemed like a man to me. And he was like, you need to lie about your age on this scuba diving form so that we can go out on a date.
Oh God, that's so terrible.
And I was really morally conflicted, and I was like, but this is a legal document, and I can't do that. But he told me that I have to, and I didn't do it. I put down my real age.
Good for you. That makes me very happy. I'm glad that you did not do that.
We still went out. He was mad at me. We went for a walk on the beach, and then there was probably outside a resort, there was a lounge chair for two humans. And he got on the lounge chair and we started kissing. I almost forgot this. And he put my hand on his crotch and I was like, what? And I pulled my hand away and he did it again. And I pulled my hand away again. And I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know to be like, I'm not there yet. Like I'm not ready to do that yet, you know? I just remember him being so upset with me. He kind of stonewalled me the whole way. I think he walked me back.
God.
Yeah, he was
You're gonna write him a letter
mad
that's
at me.
like, "Dear Scuba Crush, you are gross."
And I was a child.
Yeah.
So I don't know how old he was, but he was probably above 18 if he was
that's
so
gross.
concerned with me
wow.
lying about my age.
This is really concerning.
I know. I like snuck out of the hotel room to go meet with him. I know this is really. It could have gone really,
Yeah,
really
I'm glad that
badly.
you had the wherewithal to like stand your ground, and also that he wasn't pushier than.
Yeah, I'm glad he wasn't pushier than he
That story
was.
ends terribly
Than
for a lot of people.
just putting my hand. Yeah, I hate to say I lucked out,
But you did.
but I did,
You did. Yeah.
and in a way that a lot of people don't. And so fuck, you know.
I remember when I was 12 having a friend of mine who was in an acting class with me who was 16. I remember there being a moment where I was like, oh, he's like kind of starting to look at me in a different way. And so I started referring to him as like a brother. I was like, I need to very clearly be like, you are family. You are not someone who I am interested in. And I don't really know where that came from, but I feel so thankful that at 12 I was like, gross. Old man.
Clarity.
No, thank you.
Don't like.
Brother.
I have had a thing. I thought this would be true, and it totally is. When I was 14, I liked 30-year-old men. And I thought I had this theory because as I got into my 20s, I still liked 30-something men. And I was like, I'm always going to like 30-something men. When I get into my 30s, I'm still going to like 30-something men. And then when I'm in my 40s and 50s and 60s, I'm just always going to like 30-something men, which is a lot less creepy than the character Matt McConaughey plays where he's like high school girls, man.
right.
I get older, they just stay the same age. But that's true, right? And how interesting that this demographic of people is so attractive to me and has been since I was a teenager and still is 22 years
I'm
later.
perfectly fine with you fetishizing men in their 30s. That seems fine. That's okay. Keep
It's
doing
legit,
it.
right?
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. Do we need to pause?
I think yes, so I can just explain to my husband
What's happening?
why 3 women are lying on the couch in their dressing
Mike.
gowns.
Hello, husband. Hello, husband of Genevieve.
We were talking about you, actually.
How do you feel about that?
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, you're on a call? Okay, me too. I know, that's why I wanted to prep you. But anyway, you walked in on it, so. That's going to be the best photo we have. You know that, don't you? Yeah.
Oh, God. Hi. Oh, so great. So,
But I want to get back to the lady stuff.
yeah, that's exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
So, your early lady inclinations.
My first crush was on a girl who I was best friends with when I was 12. Her name was Kayla. She's a really cute, goth as fuck girl. She had a boyfriend, and I remember her. She like talked about being bisexual. It was the first time I heard that word. I was like, oh, I think I might also be that. Yeah, that was kind of it. I didn't do anything with any girls in high school, but I also didn't do anything with any boys in high school. So
How old were you when you met Kayla?
I was 12, I think.
12.
I was in like 7th grade.
So that's the first time you're like, that's a thing a person can be.
That's really young to understand the word bisexual. That did not come into my vocabulary until like 25.
I feel very thankful that she said, I don't know where she came up with it. I don't know why she knew it.
Thank you, Kayla.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
We should contact her because she should join
You know,
Circle.
I would, but then after 8th grade, she like disappeared, and I was like, we were best friends, and you just like fucking disappeared. So I was like, okay, I guess we're not.
You don't want to get the
I don't want to.
story.
I don't want to be nice to her. There's no story. She just like made. We were very different, and she made friends who were a little bit more like her. She like got kind of into drugs in high school, and I was not. We just like wound up being in different crowds.
Yeah, but you still don't know what happened inside her. You still don't know the story. You may not want to know the story.
I mean,
but
she
there's
doesn't know
probably
that I like had
a
any sort of
story.
crush on her, and it wasn't.
Oh, really?
It was just like over summer we like lost touch. Then we like went to high school, and she had gone to a different high school for a minute. It wasn't like dramatic in any way.
I had a friend who I was very close to for a while, who was also very goth, and she said one time I was like, "Well, it's just you wear a lot of black eye makeup and black boots and." Black and you like this kind of music, and she's like, that's not what being goth is. And I said, oh, what's being goth? And she said, I can't explain it to you. It's just something you are or you aren't, and you are not goth.
That's so goth. What a goth thing to say. I love that. You either get it or you don't.
She recently contacted me and apologized for how she treated me towards the end of our friendship.
Oh my gosh, that's nice.
And you know what? She wanted to spend some time, and I did not want to. I did not want to devote the time. I don't have a lot of bandwidth these days.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that friendship being in the past. Mm-hmm. So I hear you.
Yeah.
Chapter was closed.
But so Jen, you didn't hear that word until you were 25, but did
Not
you
even,
have...
actually. Well, 25 is the first time I kissed a girl.
Oh, okay.
Was it British? Did you British?
Yeah, it was full on British.
So some gin and tonics and...
Well, it was in a ski resort because at the time I was a ski rep and she was one of my guests. So
Ooh,
perhaps
saucy.
I broke the rules there.
So a little bit later you
Got a little bit naughty.
you got a little bit naughtier
Well, yeah.
after she left finance. It's so weird when people say that.
Yeah, that was the first time I kissed a girl, and then that was it for about 3 years.
What was she like, and what was it like, and why do you think it happened then as opposed to any other time it might have happened?
Because I was outside my home, London, and therefore no one I knew was with me, and I could do whatever I want without people talking about me. I guess I was concerned about my reputation. I thought this would be gossip, and I didn't want to be gossip.
And you're probably right.
Definitely back in those days, yeah.
That's why I didn't date in high school.
And gossip is uncontrollable by its very nature. So if you give it a little, feed it a little scrap, and then just not controlled.
Right, and this is before social media, right? So I think we all talked a lot more in those days, as in to one another. Mm-hmm. So that was, I guess that's what happened then. But
you weren't with anybody. You didn't have any friends there. You were just working.
Yeah, I went there on my own. I wanted to do something like completely unconventional. Again,
Love it. Seeing a theme.
And started to take 6 months out and work in a French ski resort. Because, why not? Even though I was only 25, they put me in charge of 60 people because I was the oldest, which seems crazy. They were 18, 19, just looking for work, just looking for fun, all like keen like boarders, but kitchen hands, running the hotel restaurant, and I was in charge of all the guests. So
I wonder if your experience in the finance world gave you this sort of gravitas as well.
This is before I worked in finance.
Oh, this is before?
Yeah. I then went back to London and worked pretty hard in finance after that.
So she was a guest. What'd she look like?
Her name was Louise, and she was from Nottingham, and she was about my height with some medium brown hair and very pretty. And she was a lesbian, and she, I think, was trying to tell me about life as a lesbian and how I should consider it, which was totally not on my radar. And this was just like an experiment for me. And that was all it was going to be.
Straight girls.
Yeah, I know.
which is something that is
I just fulfill the stereotype.
something that's really looked down upon, right?
I don't think experimenting is looked down upon. I think that you get to a point where you're like, okay, I can't deal with being your experiment anymore.
Yeah, but I think that's a really common feeling for women who are sure they are sexually drawn to women and or romantically drawn to women. Mm-hmm. People who are like, am I maybe, I don't know, with a certain person maybe? That there is a very low tolerance and even a real derision thrown at people who are bicurious by folks who are certain.
I think that in the LGBT community, there's often definitely a dismissal of bisexuality.
I know, and it's right in there.
Yeah.
It's a B.
I know.
The third letter. There have been letters added. So I've been saying lately LGBTQPIAD.
Oh, I got P in there. Okay.
I like that. It feels the most inclusive and expansive of the ones that I've heard. I like getting the P in there.
I've just lost track of acronyms now. It just seems a bit insane.
But pansexual, intersex, asexual, and demisexual describe things that are not described by any of the others.
Yeah.
I think of queer as the big umbrella, but none of the other things describe those four. And so that's why I think it's good to have them in there.
That's
for
more
sure.
accurate.
Yeah, broader, inclusive.
There so needs to be some education on what these acronyms mean, because people are throwing around terms like they know, but they don't.
Oh, the BLT community.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of women I meet in my community who say, hey, you know, I'm pan. And I'm like, what does that mean for you? And of course, they describe it completely like bisexual. I'm like, well, there's a difference there, right? Do you understand that? No, because Miley Cyrus is pansexual and I'm just like her.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
So there we have a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but there is a difference between bi and pan.
The way that I would describe it is that as a pansexual person, attraction is not limited to the gender binary, but there might be attraction to people who are non-binary, people who are intersex, and people who are trans.
Correct.
Yeah, but I don't think that bisexual means that you are not attracted to people who are intersex, who are trans. I just think that, right, because trans people can be
Identifying strongly with the gender binary. Yes.
And I think that pansexual, at least in my understanding, is I am attracted to people regardless of their gender identity. Like the gender identity doesn't play a role in my attraction. Where when I see people talk about bisexual, I frequently think that they are attracted to people and their gender identity has something to do with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of sense to me. Dr. Jana posted recently on Instagram that bisexual doesn't necessarily mean biromantic. And that's something that I think would do well to be more understood and more personally understood, right? If you say I'm interested in sexuality with these people, but I actually have romantic feelings really just for these people. And that distinction doesn't have to be something shameful, because I think that there are folks who are berating themselves for not, let's say, falling in love with people that they might want to have sex with.
Right. That's fair.
Your first kiss, skiing, out of your elements, and then it doesn't happen again until...
I said 28 earlier, but I'm thinking actually maybe it was like 30.
So several years go by.
Yeah.
Was it in your brain? Were you thinking about it? Did you think back on it?
Yes, a lot. But I was in a relationship with a man who didn't approve of it. So it was not allowed. In fact, he was quite repulsed by it.
This episode was mixed and mastered by Irvin Gaduri. You can find him for all your audio needs at igrecording.com. As ever, my lovely intro music was composed by Alan Markley, who is on Instagram as Plastic Cannons, and my saucy likeness of a logo was illustrated by Shauna Shea, whom you can hire on 99 Designs. To listen to next week's episode, the second part of my conversation with Skirt Club's Genevieve and Shelby, in which we discuss sexy experiences with women, my desire to voyeur, and money, become a patron of the Horizontal Arts on patreon.com/horizontalwithlila. And until next time, may you have someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. In 3 days, I fly down to Orlando to attend my first podcast conference, so that is what I'm looking forward to. Thank you, my dear. Thank you for getting horizontal. Gonna do a little for my, mental health check, okay?
It is in fact still
It
on.
is in fact still on. Yes. Just had to, so it doesn't stay in my mind.
Right.
Is it on?
It's like when you leave home and you're like, did I leave the stove on? And you just fixate on it.
No, of course not. I'm a fucking squirrel.
Oh, God.
The Eddie Izzard bit in Dress to Kill. Do you know that? Did I leave the gas on?
Oh my God, yeah.
Of course
I do
not. I'm a fucking squirrel.